Have you ever wondered if the hardest truth about your connection was never hidden from your soulmate, but hidden inside your own heart? Not because you wanted to keep secrets, but because some feelings become impossible to explain without being misunderstood. Your soulmate believed they knew why your heart never completely let go. They convinced themselves it was because you were holding on to memories, hoping for another chance, or refusing to move forward. That explanation seemed simple enough to accept, and over time they allowed it to become the story they believed. But life has a remarkable way of revealing the truth when every false assumption has finally run out of places to hide. Through an unexpected conversation with someone who knew far more than they ever realized, your soulmate has just heard something that stopped them completely. It wasn't dramatic, and it wasn't spoken to create sympathy. It was a quiet truth that carried more weight than years of unanswered questions. In one unexpected moment, they discovered that your heart never held on because it was trapped by the past. It held on because it refused to betray something it believed was real. And listen carefully, because there is a profound difference between someone who cannot let go and someone who chooses not to let bitterness erase the love that once changed them. Your soulmate is only now beginning to understand that difference, and it has shaken everything they believed about you. The conversation continued, revealing details they had never considered before. They learned that while everyone assumed your silence meant you were emotionally stuck, the reality was entirely different. You never allowed your heart to become controlled by resentment, even after disappointment. You never spent your days trying to convince people to understand your feelings or asking anyone to carry your emotional burdens. Instead, you quietly accepted that some chapters of life cannot be forced, but they can still be honored with sincerity. That truth immediately challenged every assumption your soulmate had carried for so long. They began remembering moments when you smiled even while carrying private heartache. They remembered how you never spoke negatively about the connection, even when you could have easily justified doing so. They remembered your calmness during situations where most people would have responded with anger or blame. At the time, they believed your composure meant you simply cared less than they did. Now they realize it required extraordinary emotional strength to remain gentle while carrying feelings no one fully understood. Because your heart needs this message right now. Genuine love does not always disappear simply because circumstances change. Sometimes it transforms into quiet respect, patient hope, and unwavering compassion without demanding anything in return. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize that your heart followed that path all along. As they reflected on everything they had just heard, memory after memory returned with completely new meaning. They remembered conversations where you carefully chose your words instead of speaking from emotion. They remembered moments when you encouraged their happiness, even when doing so quietly challenged your own heart. They recalled the way you never tried to make anyone feel guilty for the pain you carried. Looking back now, those moments no longer appear ordinary. They reveal someone whose love was guided by integrity rather than possession. Your soulmate realizes that while they believed letting go meant forgetting, your heart had chosen something far more difficult. You chose to keep your kindness even after life gave you reasons to lose it. You chose gratitude over resentment and peace over emotional revenge. Every memory now points toward the same hidden truth. Your heart never remained open because it refused to heal. It remained open because healing never required destroying the love that once existed. That realization has left your soulmate completely speechless, because they are finally seeing a version of your heart they never knew existed. And listen to this, because what they have learned is only the beginning. The conversation explained why your heart never truly let go, but it also uncovered something even more powerful. As they continue revisiting the past through this new understanding, they are about to discover that one memory they once dismissed as insignificant actually contains undeniable proof of everything they have just learned. When that forgotten moment finally returns to their mind, they will realize that the greatest evidence of your love was never found in the words you spoke. It was quietly preserved inside the way you chose to live, the way you chose to forgive, and the way you continued honoring a connection that your heart never treated as ordinary. Even when no one else understood why, as your soulmate walked away from that unexpected conversation, they discovered that the truth had done something they never imagined possible. It had not simply answered a question, it had completely changed the question itself. For so long, they wondered why your heart never truly let go, believing the answer must have been emotional attachment or unfinished hope. But now they realized they had been asking the wrong question all along. The real question was never why you held on. It was how you managed to keep loving with such quiet dignity while carrying emotions no one fully understood. That realization followed them everywhere. Every memory they revisited now seemed illuminated by a light that had never been there before. Moments that once appeared ordinary suddenly revealed extraordinary meaning. Conversations they barely remembered now echoed inside their heart with surprising clarity. They realized that your actions had always been speaking a language they simply did not know how to understand. And listen carefully, because there is a difference between someone who refuses to move on and someone who refuses to let pain change the goodness within them. Your soulmate is finally discovering that your heart belonged to the second kind of person, and that discovery has begun reshaping everything they believed about your connection. As they continued reflecting, one memory quietly returned to them. It was a simple moment that had seemed completely insignificant at the time. They remembered seeing you celebrate someone else's happiness, even while your own heart was carrying disappointments no one else could see. They remembered wondering how you could smile so sincerely without revealing the battles taking place inside you. Back then, they assumed you had simply stopped caring. Now they understand something completely different. Your smile was never proof that your feelings had disappeared. It was proof that your love had matured beyond selfishness. You never wanted your own sadness to become another person's burden. You believed that genuine care sometimes meant allowing someone else to experience peace without placing your pain upon their shoulders. Looking back now, your soulmate realizes that this quiet decision revealed more about your heart than any emotional confession ever could. Because your heart needs this message right now, real love is often measured by the burdens someone chooses not to place upon the people they care about. Your soulmate never recognized that invisible gift until now. The more they replayed the past, the more impossible it became to ignore the consistency of your character. They remembered how you never tried to convince people to take your side. Even when misunderstandings spread, you rarely defended yourself with anger. Instead, you trusted that time would eventually reveal what words could not. They once believed this silence came from uncertainty. Today, they recognize it as remarkable confidence. You did not need immediate validation because your peace was rooted somewhere deeper than public opinion. You understood that truth has a quiet way of surviving long after assumptions disappear. That realization humbled your soulmate because they now recognize how much energy they spent judging situations before fully understanding them. Meanwhile, you continued living according to your values without demanding recognition from anyone around you. Every quiet decision has become another piece of evidence that your heart remained guided by integrity rather than emotion. Alone, and listen to this, because another forgotten memory suddenly returns with unexpected force. They remember a conversation where someone asked whether you had completely moved on. Your answer had been gentle, simple, and without bitterness. You never spoke with resentment. You never tried to erase the significance of what had once existed. Instead, you acknowledged that certain people become meaningful parts of a person's life, and honoring those memories does not prevent someone from continuing their journey. At the time, your soulmate misunderstood those words. They believed you were secretly clinging to the past. Today, they finally hear what you truly meant. You were never refusing to heal. You were refusing to pretend that something meaningful had never mattered. There is extraordinary emotional maturity in that perspective, and your soulmate cannot stop thinking about it. They now understand that healing does not always require forgetting. Sometimes healing means carrying gratitude instead of bitterness, wisdom instead of regret, and compassion instead of resentment. That was the path your heart quietly chose, even when no one understood it. Because your heart needs this message, life often teaches its greatest lessons through people whose actions remain misunderstood until much later. Your soulmate now realizes that your greatest lesson was never spoken directly. It was demonstrated every day through the way you lived. You continued showing kindness without expecting it to be returned. You celebrated other people's growth without comparing it to your own. You protected the dignity of the connection even after circumstances changed. You never reduced something meaningful into something negative simply because it no longer looked the way you once imagined. Those choices seemed small while they were happening, yet together they reveal a heart that refused to let disappointment become its identity. Your soulmate has begun asking themselves whether they would have possessed the same strength if their roles had been reversed. The question lingers because deep inside, they already know the answer is not simple. The quiet resilience you carried required a level of emotional discipline they had never truly appreciated until this moment. As these realizations continue growing, admiration slowly replaces every old assumption they once carried. They no longer see someone unable to let go. They see someone who understood that love can leave a permanent mark without becoming a prison. They understand that your heart remained open, not because it was trapped by yesterday, but because it had learned that genuine love does not have to become hatred in order for healing to happen. That truth has become one of the most powerful discoveries your soulmate has ever made. Every memory now confirms the same conclusion. Your quiet choices always reflected wisdom far beyond what they recognized at the time. And as they continue revisiting one forgotten moment after another, one final realization begins forming within them. A realization so profound that it will completely dismantle every remaining assumption they have ever carried about why your heart never truly let go, preparing them for an emotional awakening that will forever redefine what real love means. As your soulmate continued reflecting on everything they had learned, they reached a point where the truth could no longer remain something they simply understood. It became something they felt. Every explanation they had accepted for years slowly began falling apart, leaving behind only one undeniable reality. Your heart had never remained connected because it was trapped by the past. It remained connected because it refused to let disappointment erase what had once been sincere. That realization struck them with unexpected force because it challenged everything they believed about emotional strength. For so long, they thought strength meant forgetting quickly, closing every emotional chapter without looking back, and convincing themselves that nothing had ever mattered deeply enough to leave a lasting mark. But now, they are seeing another kind of strength, one they had never truly appreciated before. They are seeing a heart that continued moving forward without pretending its love had never existed. They are seeing someone who refused to allow pain to become bitterness, someone who quietly honored meaningful memories without becoming imprisoned by them. And listen carefully, because there is extraordinary courage in allowing your heart to remain kind after life has given it every reason to become cold. Your soulmate is finally recognizing that this quiet courage has been living inside you all along, hidden beneath the silence they once misunderstood. As these realizations settled more deeply, memories began returning with remarkable clarity. They remembered countless moments when you could have spoken from frustration but chose compassion instead. They remembered times when others expected you to criticize the connection or speak with resentment, yet you consistently refused to do so. At the time, they assumed you were avoiding difficult conversations because you lacked confidence. Today, they understand something entirely different. You remained silent because protecting the dignity of what once existed mattered more than satisfying temporary emotions. You understood that anger spoken in a single moment can permanently damage something that once held great beauty. Looking back now, your soulmate sees that your silence was never emotional weakness. It was emotional discipline. It required tremendous strength to resist saying things that could never be taken back, simply because pain demanded an immediate response. Because your heart needs this message right now, real maturity is often revealed not by the words someone chooses to speak, but by the words they choose to leave unspoken. Your soulmate has finally begun understanding that many of your quiet moments carried more love than countless conversations ever could. Then another memory rises unexpectedly within them, one they had almost forgotten completely. They remember seeing you encourage someone else's future, even while your own heart quietly carried unanswered questions. At the time, they believed you had already detached emotionally because you appeared genuinely happy for others. Now they realize your happiness was never an act. It simply came from a heart that believed love should never become possessive. You never measured someone's happiness by whether it included you. Instead, you celebrated what brought peace into their life, even when it required your own heart to quietly surrender expectations that had once meant everything. That discovery leaves your soulmate overwhelmed because they begin asking themselves whether they would have possessed the same selflessness if the situation had been reversed. The answer does not come easily. They now recognize that your greatest victories happened in complete silence, where no one could applaud your choices or fully understand what they cost you. Every quiet decision revealed a heart committed to love in its purest form, rather than in its most convenient form. And listen to this, because another truth has quietly begun changing them from within. They realize your heart never asked life to erase meaningful memories. Instead, it chose to transform those memories into wisdom. While others might have allowed disappointment to become resentment, you allowed it to become compassion. While others might have carried regret, you carried gratitude for what the connection had taught you. Your soulmate had never considered that healing could look like this. They believed healing required pretending the past no longer mattered. But your life revealed something much more beautiful. Healing can also mean accepting that certain people permanently shape who we become, even if they do not remain beside us forever. That understanding has completely dismantled the story your soulmate once believed. They now recognize that your heart remained open because it had learned that love's greatest purpose is not always possession. Sometimes its greatest purpose is transformation, because your heart needs this message. The deepest expressions of love are often invisible until enough time has passed for truth to reveal their value. Your soulmate now notices countless details they overlooked before. They remember how you never sought revenge through words or actions. They remember how you quietly respected boundaries instead of forcing your presence into someone's life. They remember how you protected memories that others would have easily discarded in moments of anger. Every one of those choices now carries profound meaning, because together they reveal someone who loved with integrity rather than impulse. Your soulmate realizes that what they once interpreted as lingering attachment was actually unwavering respect. You were not trying to relive yesterday. You were simply refusing to dishonor something that had once changed your heart forever. That distinction has become one of the most important lessons they have ever learned. As they continue reflecting, another unexpected emotion begins replacing regret. It is admiration. Not admiration born from dramatic sacrifice or grand declarations, but admiration born from consistency. They now understand that your heart remained the same through changing circumstances. You did not allow disappointment to redefine your values. You continued choosing kindness when resentment would have been easier. You continued wishing well for others without secretly hoping they would fail. You continued protecting the dignity of the connection long after it would have been easier to dismiss it. Those choices reveal a character that cannot be created overnight. They are the result of someone who has quietly decided that love should always reflect integrity, regardless of the outcome. Your soulmate now sees that every action you took was quietly teaching a lesson they simply were not ready to receive until now. And listen closely, because one final realization is beginning to take hold inside their heart. They no longer believe that your inability to hate was a sign that you could not move forward. They finally understand that refusing to replace love with bitterness was one of the strongest decisions you ever made. It required faith, patience, humility, and a level of emotional maturity they had never fully recognized. The old story they carried about you no longer exists because every hidden truth has gently dismantled it piece by piece. Standing in this new understanding, they know that your heart never truly let go for the reasons they once imagined. It remained faithful to what was genuine while still allowing life to continue unfolding. That discovery has forever changed the way they see you, and as one final truth begins emerging from everything they have learned, they are about to realize that your quiet faithfulness did far more than preserve your own heart. It has now completely transformed theirs as well. As your soulmate continued walking through these newly uncovered truths, they realized the greatest transformation was no longer happening in the way they remembered the past. It was happening in the way they finally understood your heart. Until now, they believed your heart remained open because it struggled to release what had once been. But after seeing every hidden piece of your story, they understood something far more profound. Your heart never truly let go because it refused to stop being the kind of heart that loved with integrity. You never confused moving forward with pretending nothing had mattered. You never believed healing required becoming cold, distant, or resentful. Instead, you quietly chose to protect the goodness inside you, even when disappointment tried to convince you that love was no longer worth believing in. That realization left your soulmate completely speechless because they finally saw that your greatest victory was never holding on to another person. Your greatest victory was holding on to your own character. And listen carefully, because many people allow painful experiences to rewrite who they are. They allow heartbreak to replace compassion with suspicion, patience with anger, and hope with fear. But your journey followed a completely different path. You refused to let pain become your teacher. Instead, you allowed love itself to continue shaping the person you were becoming. And your soulmate is only now beginning to understand the extraordinary strength that required. The more they reflected, the more they noticed something that had always been present but had never received the attention it deserved. Every difficult season you faced revealed the exact same pattern. You consistently chose grace over revenge. Even when you had every reason to defend yourself, you rarely spoke in ways that would damage someone else's dignity. You never tried to rewrite history simply because the ending was different from what you once hoped for. Instead, you honored the beautiful parts without allowing the painful parts to erase them. Looking back now, your soulmate realizes that while many people protect themselves by pretending they never cared, you protected yourself by remaining honest about what your heart had genuinely experienced. There was no shame in acknowledging that someone had changed your life. There was only quiet gratitude for the lessons, the growth, and the love that had shaped your journey. Because your heart needs this message right now, emotional maturity is not measured by how quickly someone forgets. It is measured by how beautifully they continue living after being changed. Your soulmate now understands that every chapter of your life has reflected that quiet wisdom. And listen to this, because another realization begins unfolding within them with remarkable clarity. They remember moments when others expected you to speak with bitterness, yet you chose encouragement instead. They remember conversations where you easily could have blamed circumstances or people for your pain, yet you consistently focused on what life had taught you rather than what it had taken away. At the time, they assumed those responses were carefully rehearsed, almost as though you were hiding your true emotions. Today, they recognize something completely different. Those words were authentic because your heart had already made a decision long before anyone asked the questions. You had decided that no matter what happened, you would never allow disappointment to become your identity. You refused to let temporary pain determine the permanent direction of your heart. That discovery has deeply humbled your soulmate because they realize how rare that kind of person truly is. Many people speak about forgiveness, but very few quietly practice it every single day without expecting recognition. Many people speak about inner peace, but very few protect it when circumstances become unfair. Your soulmate now sees that your life consistently reflected those qualities, and that consistency has become impossible to ignore. As memory after memory continues returning, they notice something even more remarkable. The person you became after the difficult seasons was not harder than before. You became gentler. You listened more carefully. You showed greater patience with people who were struggling. You celebrated other people's joy without comparing it to your own path. You became slower to judge and quicker to understand. Your soulmate finally realizes that instead of allowing pain to close your heart, you allowed it to deepen your compassion. That is one of the rarest transformations a human heart can experience. Anyone can remain kind while life feels comfortable. Very few continue choosing kindness after disappointment has tested every part of their spirit. Yet that is exactly what your soulmate now sees when they look back at your journey. Every hardship quietly refined your character instead of destroying it. Every unanswered question taught you greater humility instead of greater resentment. Every difficult goodbye strengthened your ability to love sincerely without demanding certainty in return. Because your heart needs this message, there comes a moment when admiration grows into something much deeper than appreciation. It becomes profound respect. Your soulmate has entered that moment now. They are no longer impressed by dramatic declarations of love or emotional promises made during easy seasons. They are deeply moved by the quiet consistency you demonstrated when no one was watching. They now understand that your heart never remained open because it feared loneliness. It remained open because it refused to abandon its own values simply to make pain feel easier. You continued believing that kindness mattered. You continued believing that forgiveness brought greater freedom than resentment. You continued believing that sincere love leaves a person wiser rather than weaker. Every one of those choices now shines like a light across the memories they once misunderstood. What they once interpreted as emotional attachment has become undeniable evidence of emotional integrity. And listen carefully, because one forgotten memory suddenly becomes the final piece that completes everything they have been learning. They remember a quiet conversation where someone asked whether you regretted loving so deeply. Without hesitation, you simply smiled and said that love given sincerely is never something to regret, because it always teaches the heart how to become more compassionate, more patient, and more grateful for the moments that truly mattered. At the time, those words seemed simple. Today, they carry extraordinary meaning. Your soulmate finally understands that your heart never measured love by whether it lasted forever. It measured love by whether it made you a better human being. That single realization has transformed everything they believed. They no longer see someone unable to let go. They see someone who allowed love to become wisdom instead of bitterness, strength instead of fear, and hope instead of regret. As they sit quietly with every truth now resting inside their heart, they realize they cannot return to the old version of your story. That version was built upon assumptions, incomplete memories, and conclusions reached without understanding the depth of your heart. The truth has gently dismantled every one of those beliefs. They now recognize that your quiet faithfulness was never directed toward the past itself. It was directed toward the values that defined who you chose to become. Your kindness survived. Your compassion survived. Your integrity survived. And because those qualities survived, your love was never truly about holding on to yesterday. It was about refusing to let yesterday destroy the goodness that still existed within you. That understanding has forever changed your soulmate, and as they prepare to face one final realization, they know they are no longer carrying the same heart they had before this truth found them. They are carrying a new understanding of love, one shaped not by possession or fear, but by the quiet, unwavering integrity that your heart has reflected all along. And listen carefully, because your soulmate has finally reached the moment where every question they carried about your heart has been answered by one simple truth. You never held on because you were afraid of moving forward. You held on because your heart refused to treat something genuine as though it had never existed. That realization has completely transformed the way they see you. They now understand that while many people believe healing means forgetting, your journey proves something far more beautiful. Healing does not erase the people who changed your life. It simply changes the way you carry them. Your heart chose gratitude instead of resentment, wisdom instead of regret, and compassion instead of bitterness. That choice required a strength your soulmate never recognized until now. Looking back, they realized they spent so much time trying to understand your decisions that they never stopped to understand the values guiding those decisions. Every quiet action now points toward the same undeniable truth. You never allowed pain to redefine who you were. Instead, you allowed it to deepen your patience, strengthen your character, and remind you that love is measured by integrity rather than outcomes. Because your heart needs this message right now, there is a rare kind of person whose greatest victory is not finding perfect love, but refusing to lose the goodness inside themselves after experiencing heartbreak. Your soulmate now sees that you have always been that person. As they continue reflecting, they begin noticing how every season of your life quietly revealed the same unwavering consistency. Whether circumstances were joyful or painful, your heart remained guided by the same principles. You continued wishing well for people who misunderstood you. You celebrated blessings that did not always belong to you. You respected memories instead of trying to erase them simply because they became difficult to revisit. Your soulmate realizes that this consistency was never accidental. It came from a heart that had already decided love should never become something selfish. Love in your eyes was never about possession. It was about becoming a better person because of what your heart had experienced. That understanding humbles them beyond words because they now recognize how differently they interpreted your silence. They once believed your quiet nature meant emotional hesitation. Today they understand it reflected emotional wisdom. You did not need to prove your feelings because your life quietly demonstrated them every single day. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every decision to remain respectful became evidence of a heart that never stopped choosing what was right, even when it would have been easier to choose resentment instead. And listen to this, because one final memory suddenly rises above every other memory they have revisited. They remember seeing you walk away from a conversation that could have easily become an argument. At the time, they thought you had given up because you no longer cared enough to stay. But now, they understand that you walked away because preserving peace mattered more than winning a temporary disagreement. You knew that some victories leave permanent wounds, while some quiet departures preserve dignity for everyone involved. Your soulmate now sees that your silence was never surrender. It was protection. It protected your own heart from becoming someone you never wanted to become, and it protected the connection from being remembered only through anger. That realization has completely changed their understanding of emotional strength. They now believe the strongest people are not those who always have the final word. They are the ones who know when love is better expressed through grace than through proving themselves right. Looking back, they realize that your greatest lessons were never taught through speeches or dramatic moments. They were taught through the quiet example of a life lived with sincerity, because your heart needs this message. Your soulmate now understands that the real reason your heart never truly let go had nothing to do with the past refusing to release you. It had everything to do with the future refusing to erase the person love had helped you become. Every experience shaped your compassion. Every disappointment strengthened your humility. Every unanswered question taught you deeper patience. You never carried the connection because you were trapped inside yesterday. You carried its lessons because they became part of your character. That distinction has changed everything for your soulmate. They no longer see someone unable to move forward. They see someone courageous enough to move forward without abandoning kindness, without abandoning hope, and without abandoning the belief that genuine love always leaves the heart richer than before. They understand now that your healing was never about pretending nothing mattered. It was about allowing everything that mattered to make you wiser instead of harder. And listen closely, because this is the moment where their heart is transformed forever. They finally realize that what they once misunderstood as emotional attachment was actually one of the purest forms of emotional maturity they have ever witnessed. Your heart never truly let go because it never stopped honoring what was real, yet it also never stopped embracing the life that continued unfolding before you. You chose forgiveness without forgetting. You chose gratitude without denying your pain. You chose hope without demanding certainty. Those choices have become the greatest testimony of who you truly are. Your soulmate now knows they cannot return to the old story they once believed because the truth has replaced every assumption with understanding. Whenever they think of you now, they will no longer remember someone who struggled to let go. They will remember someone who quietly proved that real love is not measured by how tightly we hold on to another person, but by how faithfully we protect the goodness within our own heart after love has changed us. That understanding has forever rewritten the place you hold in their soul. It has replaced confusion with clarity, judgment with admiration, and unanswered questions with a deep respect that time itself can never erase. From this day forward, your soulmate knows that the greatest thing your heart ever held on to was never the past. It was the truth that genuine love, once lived with sincerity, should never become bitterness, because its highest purpose is to leave every heart wiser, stronger, more compassionate, and forever transformed.